Well, FAO is now the convener of the Regional Interagency Support Group in Latin America. So you as FAO, you will have to play an important role in a region that I would say has been very important, because in the indigenous issues, Latin America has been like the one going ahead. So now, as FAO, you will be the coordinating the Interagency Support Group in Latin America for a year that is so important, because it's the year before the World Conference, and while the year that we will be discussing what is our position with the post-2015 development agenda. It's still based on individual rights more than collective rights. So I think that is this year should be a year in which we can build that concept more. It can be a year in which we can identify good practices from indigenous communities on how to address family farming from the point of view of indigenous peoples. I think it's an opening, it's a good opportunity, but we need to work on the concept more, so it can really include the point of view of indigenous peoples. With the facility, I'm glad that we can work with you on this, because going over what you do, it creates that is what it links to the first strategic objective, to enable an environment in which local producers, local communities can really influence policy at the national and at the international level. And maybe I would link this with with your question, with who should you work on there? Well, I always have a discussion, what is political and what is technical. Any technical decision is political. So, because in the end, you are deciding on something that change power relations. So I would say that as a technical advisor agency, you make political decisions, even if you don't accept that they are political, but the way they impact on people's life is political. So I don't like that because that division, because I usually feel that staff and they wash their hands, saying that this is a technical decisions. And I usually make there's digamos una broma that I usually tell everybody that I work with. And this is a dialogue between a deer and a ciempié. How you say a ciempié in? Yeah. And then the ciempié went and say, Señor venado, how can I have 4 legs like you? That's no problem. Just go and look the 4 legs. And he came back, he went, and then he came back and he said, but where can I find the 4 legs? That's not my problem. And I'm a policy maker. You go and find your leg. So you say, usually that division really impacts indigenous peoples, because usually technical decisions are reproduce the discrimination. So I'm afraid of that decision, but I agree that you are a technical institution. I respect that. So, and at the same time, now that we are discussing the post-2015 development agenda, we are saying something very clear. We need international standards. Because if we're going to talk about human rights-based approach, you need international standards. But something that we have to change after 2015 is how those international standards are transformed into goals and at the national and local level. Because if not, we will continue measuring these international standards with average that usually impact on regions or locals. For example, a lot of our countries say they have accomplished the MDGs. But that is looking at a national average figure. But what happened in a specific region where you have indigenous communities? The information proves that they haven't changed things. And maybe things are worse than 15 years ago in some of these areas. So I think that you should have a parameter or a standard of what we are defining at the international level, but when you work you should work at the national and at the local level. And you should not, because there's where you will be able to tailor what you are doing to the needs of the specific groups and specific peoples. So my recommendation would be maintain the global dialogue, the international dialogue, respect the international standards, try to bring those standards to the local level and the national level. And this is very important when we are talking about a human rights-based approach, because usually governments try to say, okay, that is the international human rights definition, but in our country we go by the national legislation. And then, well, that is not a human rights-based approach, because then you are bringing down the standard to what is agreed in the country, and you are not trying to maintain the international standard. So I think that is something that we have to be very, very careful about.